The wedding hall burst with laughter and the clinking of glasses as guests milled about, enjoying the festivities. You sat with your cousins, forcing a smile as they shared stories and gossip about the bride and groom. So it's finally the big night, huh? She playfully nudged Emma, the bride, whose cheeks turned crimson as she shyly lowered her gaze. This endearing reaction drew a round of laughter from the girls surrounding her. You feigned a smile, though you were not the slightest bit interested in their animated, lively conversation. But you had your reasons for staying with them. You half-heartedly mingled with them to avoid your mother, who had made a ritual to interrogate about your marital life at every chance she got. That was why, despite being in such a lively ambience, you looked devastated. The fear of your mother approaching you gnawed at your insides. But it wasn't long before it happened. As if summoned by your thoughts, you caught the side of her determined stride in your direction. Your heart sank. You tried to blend with your cousins, hoping she would change her course, but she didn't. Here we go, you muttered under your breath, steeling yourself for what lay ahead. Sweetheart, she spoke, her voice sweet but laced with purpose. Can I have a word with you? You wanted to deny it because you knew she would either lecture you about how to be a good wife or she would ask certain questions about your relationship with Jimin. Mom, we are catching up. Can we talk later? You forced a smile, hoping she would agree and leave you alone, but what you anticipated never happened. I won't take long. You can catch up later. Reluctantly, you got up and followed her to a more secluded corner of the hall. When you both were away from the prying eyes, her expression shifted from warm to serious within seconds. It's been almost a year, Ryan. When are you planning to start a family? It's about time, don't you think? She said, her voice low yet insistent. You inhaled sharply as frustration started bubbling over. So the discussion had shifted from being a good daughter or wife to having a child. Mom, you began, your voice laced with irritation. I am not ready for it. Not ready? She scoffed, disbelief painting her face. What is there to prepare for? You are married and it's the natural next step. Besides, you aren't getting any younger. Your hands clenched at your sides as you looked away with an exasperated sigh. But I am not ready for it. A child is a huge responsibility and I don't think I can bear it. You replied, trying not to let your anger take over your sentiments, but it seemed like your mother didn't like you defying her. You are not a kid, Ryan. You are a grown-up married woman. Ever thought about what will people think if you don't have kids? I think you should have one. Once you have a kid, you will learn how to take care of it. And your father and I would love to see your grandchild. Don't, you interrupted, your voice trembling with frustration. Don't guilt trip me into this. Why is it always about what you and Dad want? Have you ever stopped to think about what I want? Her expression darkened. She folded her arms, her face contorting with disdain. We only want what's best for you. A child will bring you and Jimin closer. Trust me, you'll thank me someday. You felt the heat rising to your face, the pressure in your chest tightening to boil over. Mom, I have said it once and I'm saying it again. I am not ready for a child. And I'm not having one just because you and Dad want a grandchild. You responded sternly. Your words held a tone of finality, but your mother was not having it. She didn't like the way you crossed her words. What has happened to you, Ryan? You were always a good child, obeying whatever we said. Now you are acting like an ungrateful brat. Don't disappoint your parents. The word struck a nerve. Disappointing your parents had been a recurring theme throughout your life. They had chosen your path, your education, your career, and even Jamin, the husband you barely knew before your wedding day. You had gone along with it, hoping to find happiness eventually, but this was too much. Mom, I'm tired of this. You snapped. Your voice cracked as your eyes welled up with angry tears. Why do you keep imposing your desires on me? Can you guys just stop for a moment and think of me as a human and not a toy who needs to be monitored all the time? I'm exhausted bearing the load of your expectations. You paused and took a deep and long breath, your composure slowly crumbling as the vulnerability visibly sparkled in your eyes. I don't want to be a good child. Just let me be. Stop interfering in my life. I can decide for myself. You exclaimed as you harshly wiped a lone tear that rolled down your cheek. Your mother went silent for a moment, but she didn't back down. I can't believe this. After all the sacrifices we made for you, this is what we get in return? What do you mean by stop interfering in your life? I gave birth. You gave birth to me and provided me the basic things every parent provides. So I should be grateful and let you leash me up and walk around the way you want? This is what you mean by being a good kid, right? You interrupted and earned a glare in return. But it did not affect you, not anymore. You decided to not let them control you anymore. You were drained out and finally wanted to put an end to it. You are a disappointment in the name of a daughter. I wish I never had you. The final straw snapped. You clenched your jaw, holding back the tears that threatened to fall. You couldn't afford to break down, not now, not in front of her. You took a step back and turned around, scanning the crowd to spot your husband. Jimin stood among a group of men, nodding politely to their conversations. His tailored suit enunciated his effortless charm, drawing glances from every corner of the hall. That's no way to behave to your mother. You can't turn your back to me when I am talking to you. I don't want to talk to you about anything anymore. You snapped, and without waiting for her response, you marched towards Chaman. He noticed you immediately, his eyes narrowing in concern as you approached. What's wrong? We are leaving. Now, you said, your voice firm but held a tinge of vulnerability. He opened his mouth to protest but stopped when he saw the look on your face. Your red and glassy eyes intensified his concern. His mind clouded with doubts, but he chose not to address them just yet. With a nod, he excused himself from the group and followed you out to the car. The drive home was silent, the air between you heavy with tension. Jimin kept glancing at you, silently observing you. He was trying to read through your silence. Meanwhile, you kept gazing at the passing scenery through the window, ignoring your phone, which vibrated in your lap continuously. You could tell with your experience that it was your mother. That was what had been happening since childhood. If you refuse to obey them blindly, they will blackmail you emotionally or manipulate you until you have no choice except to agree to whatever they want. The whole process was energy draining and disheartening. Once you arrived, you kicked off your heels and headed straight for the living room, Jimin trailing behind you. Once he closed the door, he turned to you, his brows furrowing in concern. What happened? He said finally, breaking the silence. You spun around to face him, your eyes welling up again, the frustration still swirling inside you like a whirlwind. You shook your head and turned on your heels to head upstairs, but he called out again. Tell me, I want to know what's bothering you, what happened? Though he asked out of concern, you took it otherwise, thinking he was also trying to force his orders on you. You turned around to face him. Then everything spelled out. The years of frustration, the constant pressure from your parents, the resentment you felt towards your arranged marriage. What happened? My mother happened. She cornered me again about having a baby as if it's her decision to make, as if my life isn't already controlled enough by what she and dad want. You snapped as tears streamed down your cheeks. Deep down, you knew Jimin didn't deserve to be the receiving end of your pent up frustration, but you couldn't help it. It was too much to bear. Your emotions were all over the place and you were struggling to contain them. You were angry, tired, and more than that, upset. Upset by how you had been treated by them up till now. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to live like this? You shouted, pacing the living room. Jimin blinked, shocked by a sudden outburst. Despite living together for more than 7 months, he was unaware of it. It's frustrating to constantly have my life dictated by others. I didn't even want to get married in the first place, but I did it for them, and now they want a child. How is that fair to me? You choked on a sob and tugged at your hair in frustration. Jimin listened silently, his expression unreadable. He had always found your behavior a little odd, like getting irritated on small things, always staying in your own bubble, avoiding any conversation with him. He thought probably you were struggling to adjust with him in a new space. That was why he never tried to cross the line. He let you be, let you make your own space, let you take things forward at your own pace. But he didn't know this was going in your head all the time. I can't even do a single thing for myself without contemplating for thousands of times that I'm not disappointing anyone. There's this constant guilty feeling inside me which won't go away. I keep belittling myself for not being enough, and I guess I won't ever be enough because whatever I do, they are never satisfied. When you finally stopped breathing heavily, he walked towards you, his brow furrowed, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. I had no idea you felt this way. Why didn't you tell me before? Because what's the point? You wouldn't understand. You have always been their golden boy, the perfect son in law. You just go along with everything they say, don't you? They would use you as a weapon to get what they want, and eventually, I would have to give up. Your breathing accelerated, and your knees gave up as you stumbled and dropped to the ground. Jimmy's instincts kicked in, and he lurched forward to hold you. Calm down, please, relax. He held you in his arms, rubbing a soothing hand along your back. His sweet gesture should have made you feel at ease. Instead, it made you feel uncomfortable. You weren't used to this kind of treatment. You had become too habitual to deal with things on your own that his warm presence felt blazing. Too blazing that it made you want to push him away. Yet you didn't. You stayed closer to him, tears continuously spilling from your eyes. They say they gave birth to me and that they made sacrifices for me. I agree. I'm grateful for the life they provided me, but what about my sacrifices? What about the wants and desires I killed to please them? Your voice trembled as the weight of your shattered dreams lay heavy on your chest. When I was little, they bought me books about science and space, saying I liked those. But I liked Barbie movies. I liked all those other things every other child liked, but I never said it out loud. Gemma's eyes softened as you clutched his shirt in your fist. They never allowed me to have friends because friendship would affect my grades. While other kids played with their friends, I sat alone in the corner. It was painful for me. The pain, the misery in your voice made him tighten his grip around you. After I graduated, I was so excited to pursue law arts, but guess what? They handed me an enrollment letter to a law school. I protested that it wasn't what I wanted, but they said they spent money on it and I was being ungrateful. That night, I cried. I cried for all the desires I buried deep within. You completely broke down in his arms, holding him tightly for some support. His own eyes welled up hearing your painful cries. It seemed it was a little vine weeping for the loss of her childhood. Once it scored 99 and one of my classmates scored 80. I was berated for losing that one mark. While she celebrated the gain of those 80, I mourned over the loss of one. Why was everything so difficult for me? Jimin glided his fingers through your hair, placing pecks on top of your head. You didn't deserve any of it. You deserve all the happiness in the world without expecting anything in return. Don't look down upon yourself. He placed his chin on top of your head as you let your head drop on his chest. I don't want a child, Jimin. I'm afraid I'll turn out to be like my parents and create another Vine. I don't want my child to think that she or he has to please me to gain my love. I don't want it to happen. You spoke, your loud sobs dying down to soft sniffs. Nobody will force you for anything. I promise you that, okay? Relief washed over you and you close your eyes. The exhaustion of the day and the soothing touch of Jimin finally lulled you to sleep. For the first time in your life, you felt seen and heard. When your breath evened out, Jimin looked down at your face. He rubbed the dry tears on your face. I promised you I'll make it better. The next day, when you returned from work, your heart sank. Your parents were there in the living room. They looked at you and gave you a disappointed look. You called us to have a talk and you are coming home now? That's not good, Ryan. And why aren't you picking up my calls? You weren't going to tell her that you blocked her. It was a bold move that took even you by surprise. But you felt betrayed because Jimin invited them without informing you. Was he going to tell him about your outburst the previous day? Were you wrong in thinking that he was different? Or you came back? He smiled at you as he emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray. Your eyes welled up as you met his gaze. You clenched your jaw and looked away. Come join us. I prepared the coffee just the way you like it. He placed the tray on the center table and walked over to you. He grabbed your hand. You tried to reach it, but he tightened his grip. Trust me, he whispered loud enough for only you to hear. You stopped struggling and looked at him. He gave you a reassuring nod and sat on the couch across from your parents with you beside him. Jimin handed them their coffee and forwarded the snacks he brought on his way. Silence fell over as the four of you had the coffee. Jimin was looking for a perfect opportunity to bring the topic, but as they heard his thoughts, your mother spoke first. Jimin, what do you think about extending your family? I tried to talk to your wife about this, but she threw a tantrum. I hope you give it a thought. You lowered your gaze to your lap, your hands clenching at your sides. Well, if my wife is not ready, I'm not ready either. After all, she's the one going through all the difficulties I can't even imagine about. Your mother's smile dropped, and she exchanged a look with your father. But what's new in it? Every mother goes through this. I went through it as well. Jimin smiled to himself. He put his coffee cup down on the table and straightened up. One of his hands reached out to hold yours as he looked straight to your mother. Still, it's our decision to make. You don't get to decide about when and what we should do in our marriage. Your parents were taken aback by his straightforward response. Your father, who had always been the silent one, the one who decided everything, finally spoke. We are just stating our opinion. We also want to see your grandchild. Is it allowed to ask from our child we spent years sacrificing for? There is a difference between asking and imposing your desires on your child. And your child is a 25-year-old adult. Don't you think she should have the autonomy to make decisions for herself without you guys monitoring her? He shot back, not even trying to hide the bitterness in his tone. But we know what's best for her, she countered, and Jimin let out a dry chuckle. You shifted closer to him, tugging at his shirt sleeve like a scared child. Really? Then why is your daughter not happy? Why does she look like she's walking on eggshells all the time? If you decide the best for her, why is she not willingly accepting it? They looked away, lost for words to justify their actions. Let me rephrase it for you. You choose what makes you happy and then pass the load on her to go along with your choices. And if she dares to deny it, she becomes a bad daughter or a disappointment to you, right? A long tear slipped down your eyes. And ran a hand through his hair. We won't have a child for your happiness. You would play with him or her for a few moments. In the end, it's us who have to bear the responsibilities. So stop it. We always tried our best and she never complained. I didn't knew know she had too much bitterness about her own parents. You could feel their gaze boring holes in your skull, but you didn't dare to lift your gaze. I think you mistook parenting with dictating. Parenting isn't about forcing your orders on your child, it's about nurturing them with love and care, teaching them moral values, guiding them through the ups and downs of life. It's about providing them with a home where they can turn up to whenever they feel uneasy, not a case from where they run throughout their life. They were lost for words. Maybe they realized how wrong they were, but their ego didn't let them falter from their decision. How could parents be wrong? They stood up, followed by you and Jimin. We can't stay where we are not respected. We are leaving. That's your decision. Just to inform you, you are welcome here whenever you want to come as parents. If you want to stay like controllers, I'm sorry, but I'll be forced to have a restraint order against you. His words took everyone by surprise. You snapped your head towards him, shock marring your face. But he continued, unbothered. Your best decisions led your daughter having panic attacks. You might not care about your child, but I do care about my wife. Anything or anyone that affects her adversely, I don't want that near her. Your parents didn't say anything and left quietly. Jimin closed the door behind them and turned to you. I'm sorry I talked to them like that. I'm not deciding anything for you. You can do anything you want. I just set some boundaries for you to breathe better. You rushed towards him and crashed in his arms. He stumbled backward, surprised, but wrapped his arms around you as you broke into soft cries. Thank you. Nobody took a stand for me, not even me, but you. Thank you so much. You don't have to thank me. I did what I thought was right. There are no limits for the term good child. Fitting into that frame is suffocating, and you don't have to do that anymore. Learn to prioritize yourself and remember, it's not selfish to think about your happiness. Life is too short to ponder over it. He parted away and wiped your tears. Don't kill your desires anymore. Let's smile and make some actual memories. He smiled and your lips curled up on your own. Let's go for a picnic tomorrow, but before that, I want to take you somewhere. Where? You asked as your curiosity piqued. To admit you to Imperial College of Arts? Your lips parted in shock. Overwhelmed, you hugged him again, a fresh sheen of tears covering your eyes. You opened your mouth to speak, but words refused to come out, your throat tight with emotions. Never had you ever thought someone would care about your dreams, let alone your arranged husband, whom you didn't acknowledge till now. I don't deserve this. Don't you dare say that. My wife deserves everything. Out of all the things your parents chose for you, this alliance turned out to be the best. You didn't know what you would do to treat him the same way and reciprocate his way of showing his care, but you vowed to be the best partner for him. As you looked into his eyes, you saw glimpses of something you hadn't noticed before, a shared frustration and perhaps a shared hope. As much as you deserve the happiness, he did too. He was already the best husband, and you were determined to be the best wife for him. That evening marked the beginning of a new chapter. It wasn't easy and it wasn't perfect, but for the first time, you and Jimin started talking, really talking. You began to see him not as the man forced into your life, but as someone who could understand your struggles. And as time went on, you found something unexpected blooming between you and Jimin, a connection born not out of obligation but choice.